Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bucky Badger W college football playoff preview. And so I think it's going to be an interesting slate of games. LSU versus Oklahoma and Ohio State versus Clemson. I like how the seeding went. I think it went how it should have. I think LSU should have been favored, or should have been ahead of Ohio State just based on who they played, how they played. They played Alabama, they played Auburn, they played Florida, played Georgia, they played Texas. Texas didn't turn out to be great, but they played a lot of. They crushed Texas A&M. They played a lot of really good teams, and that ended up helping them as Ohio State. They played Michigan, they played Penn State, they played Wisconsin twice. They played Cincinnati, I guess, but they didn't play Alabama on the road. They didn't play Auburn. They just didn't play the schedule that that LSU did. And when you look at the eye test, I don't think that they were as good as LSU. But anyway, this is going to be my preview, my picks for the over/under for the lines that are set on these games. And I'll tell you if I think what's a good line. And so anyway, so we are starting off with the Peach Bowl, LSU, Oklahoma, a matchup between two really good teams, I think. Obviously. And I think this is kind of a weird game, because both teams, I don't want to say evenly matched offensively. I think LSU has the better offense, but they're not too different offensively. But LSU, I think, has the much better defense. But LSU's defense hasn't played that great, but we'll see. This game kicks off 3 p.m. Central Time, which is, I'm in Central Time. This game kicks off 3 p.m. Central Time, 28, same as the other game, at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, so that's something good for LSU right there. I don't think it's going to play that much into effect, like in these bowl games, where the game is played, like for example, my Wisconsin Badgers going up against Oregon. I think it's going to be an evenly split crowd. I don't think it depends so much on location for the bowl game as to whose fans are going to show up, especially for a college football playoff semifinal. But anyway, the spread is 13.5 favoring LSU, and the over/under is 75.5. So my first pick is the over/under. So I'm going to give the over/under, spread, and then who I actually think is going to win. The over/under, for sure go with the under, because right now, I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire, at the time I'm recording this, which is the 26th, the day after Christmas, happy holidays, I guess, Merry Christmas, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, LSU's starting running back, has been one of the best running backs in the country all season. He is questionable to play. And I don't think LSU, I think Coach O, he would rather have a healthy Clyde Edwards-Helaire come a potential college football national championship, than have him play against Oklahoma when LSU has plenty of other good running backs. I don't think Edwards-Helaire needs to go. I think if he's good to go, then he should. But behind him they have John Emery Jr. They have Leonard Fournette. They have Tyrion Davis-Price. They're just they're pretty stacked at the running back position. I don't think that they need Edwards-Helaire to go. But but he can, is what I think. I think if they were playing I think if they were playing Ohio State or Clemson, he would go. I don't think he'll go. But whatever, I guess. What I think of the under right now is 75.5 is a huge number. And LSU has hit that number 6 times, which is a ton. Oklahoma's only hit it 4 times. So out of the 26 games that they've played, only 10 of them have hit 75.5, and then only 2 of them for each team. Only 2 of those have come against a team that is currently in a bowl game. So many of those are just beating up on bad teams and scoring a ton against them. And the thing is, I think for this to happen, both teams probably need to get to 40. And I think LSU, they can get to 40. It's not going to be... I expect LSU to get to 40 against Oklahoma. That's not the problem. But Oklahoma, when you look at how they score against Baylor, Texas, they don't score like the previous Oklahoma teams, like the Baker and Kyler teams, where those teams just they chuck it down the field and they score in 3 plays. This team, they're about power running. LSU, and a bit of short throwing. LSU is going to make them, this defense is going to make them kind of dink and dunk their way down the field. So I don't think you'll see any possessions for Oklahoma that end in scores ranging over or under 3.5 minutes. So for starters, there will barely, I think, be enough possessions for this game to get to 75.5. And secondly, I think LSU, their defense is very improved, and they have something to prove. The Christian Fulton versus CeeDee Lamb matchup is very important. Unless Derek Stingley goes on CeeDee Lamb, then it's still very important. And then the other one will go Charleston Rambo. But I think LSU's defense, they have something to prove. It was kind of the same way against Texas A&M and Georgia. Lately against these good teams, they have been really holding teams. And these are SEC teams. I don't want to sound like I'm SEC biased, but these are good offenses. Georgia, they held them to 10. They held Texas A&M to 7. And then, they've held other good offenses, like Utah State, they held to 6. Before that, they held Arkansas and Ole Miss to 20 and 37. But I think recently they've played, especially in those Texas A&M and Georgia games, they've played like they really have something to prove. And like they really feel like, and yeah, I think everyone is really talking about, the LSU offense. They're super good. And I mean, that's true. That is warranted. But Oklahoma, LSU's defense, it's really good too. And so I don't think that they feel like they're getting the credit they deserve. And I think that they're going to come out of the gate like Alabama did last year against Oklahoma. They're going to come out and they're going to punch Oklahoma in the mouth. And I don't think Oklahoma's going to have a response early. I think they could claw their way back into this game, but I don't think Oklahoma gets to 30. I think their max point total is 30, and if you're betting, then I just don't. And then LSU would also have to get to 45. So if Oklahoma gets to 30, which I don't think they will, LSU would have to get to 45 on a good Oklahoma defense, which I think can hold them. Like LSU, I think they'll cool it off a bit late in the game. That's my bad. I think they'll cool it off a bit late in the game, but Oklahoma will really, Oklahoma will maybe claw their way back into this game late, but I just think LSU's defense is just too good to have a 75-point game. LSU in this game is favored by 13.5. I think they beat Oklahoma by 3 touchdowns. When you look at this Oklahoma team, like LSU is crushing people. They are crushing super good teams. They're crushing Texas A&M. They crushed Georgia. Though they beat Alabama on the road. And Oklahoma, they're deserving of beating Baylor and Iowa State. But and I think Oklahoma is really good. I think that they're the fourth best team in the country. I think that they're a really good team. But I just think that LSU, they're coming into this game. They want to crush Oklahoma, and say, we're not worse than Ohio State. We're not worse than Clemson. We're going to crush Oklahoma. And I think they make a statement, and I think they win by 3 touchdowns. I think my score prediction is 45-21, something like that. I just think LSU, they play with their hearts on their sleeve, and I think that they play like they have nothing to lose. I think Oklahoma, they're good. They're a really good team. They're just not as good of a team as LSU. And next up, after probably a bit of a somber note for Oklahoma fans, we have number 2 Ohio State, number 3 Clemson, in the, what bowl is this? In the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl. 7 o'clock Central Time, 28th, like the other game. In this game, Clemson is favored by 2, and the over-under is 63. So first of all, over-under. I'd go under again, and it is because I think that these quarterbacks are good, but I think that these might be the 2 top defenses in all of college football. And I know how Ohio State played against Wisconsin, and I think that Wisconsin came out of the gates blazing. I think it's possible for Clemson to do that, but I think the Ohio State defense is too good. And I think it's the same thing for Clemson. You saw how Ohio State performed against Wisconsin earlier in the game. And they broke free in the second half, and I think that was just because the moment was too big for Wisconsin. The moment is not too big for Clemson. And Brett Venables and Dabo Swinney are going to have that team ready to go, and I don't think this game, I think Clemson, they could score some points. We saw Wisconsin able to run a bit on Ohio State. I think that Clemson can probably do a bit of that. Also, they have the experienced quarterback in this situation. I don't think Ohio State can really do anything. I just think, they kind of got by against Wisconsin by Justin Fields running around and improvising, and receivers getting open after Fields running around for 10 seconds. And I think that's just because Wisconsin, they're not an athletic defense. They're not too fast of a defense. And they kind of just melted in that second half. Like I said, I don't think Clemson's going to do that at all. And Ohio State, I think wins this game, or what am I saying? I think Ohio State is able to put up some points late in the game, but the first half, I see no more than at the most 10 points for Ohio State. And so the over-under, I think there's about 45 points scored in this game. Definitely not 63. Definitely take the under on that one. I'm even more confident in that than the LSU-Oklahoma game. The spread is Clemson favored by 2, and I guess I'll just give my prediction now because it's a close spread. So, I mean, I'm really picking who I think is outright going to win here. And I think it's going to be Clemson. Um, Clemson has been on this big stage more than really Ohio State has. I think the moment, like Ohio State, they can't, like they've kind of, their defense has kind of gotten out to a slow start early in games recently, like against Wisconsin. They gave up 21 points in the first half. Not a good showing at all. Against Michigan, they gave up what? I think 16 in the first half, but they were really bailed out by some Michigan errors. I think they really should have given up like 24 because Michigan fumbled inside the 10 and they missed a kick. At the very least, I think they should have given up 20 in that first half to Michigan. And I think their offense has kind of they got out to a slow start against Wisconsin. They can't do that against Clemson. I think Brett Venables has Clemson's defense ready. I think Justin Fields is. I think he definitely has a turnover or two in this game. I think if Clemson can stop J.K. Dobbins and focus on stopping the Ohio State passing attack, then I think it's going to be really hard for Ohio State to really get anything going because how they pulled away against Penn State and Michigan and Wisconsin has been they've relied on J.K. Dobbins. I think, Isaiah Simmons, very good. He's really the only one that you need to talk about on that defense. But, Xavier Thomas, really good. Tanner Muse, really good. You get the point. A.J. Terrell, really good. And so, I think Clemson's defense, they definitely have the capability to stop Dobbins. And if they do that, I have a hard time seeing Justin Fields put up a lot of points on Clemson. And so I think that Ohio State at the most puts up 17 in this game, the very most. And Clemson, I think, gets 24 or so. I think Clemson gets out to a lead, and Ohio State kind of gets a comeback in them, but they can't come back all the way against Clemson. And so I think Clemson wins. They face off against LSU. And I don't have a prediction for that game right now. We'll see after the semifinals. I wouldn't be shocked if Ohio State won. I'd be very shocked if Oklahoma won. But anyway, this has been the College Football Playoff Preview by Bucky Badger W. And I will be back next week to talk about the National Championship Preview.